So we kind of talk about over-the-top plans, $250,000 with thermal imaging, this and that, and people are there. If they hear this, they're like, that wasn't there. What's going on, guys? So about a week before we showed up, they changed all the rules. The mask mandates were loosened, the amount of people in a building were loosened, all that. So luckily we were in communications with the county, the largest county in Florida, so they had a good staff. We were constantly communicating with them, but it was down to the 11th hour of what protocols are we going to put forward. I mean, we brought hundreds of people. In fact, the hotel didn't have the staff at the time. They actually had to bring them in 2 weeks early just to start training on the new protocols. And again, we were part of that. We talked to them. We knew what our staff needed to do, what their staff needed to do, how we could work together to get the cleaning done. You got to move a couple hundred people out of the room and then clean all the seats and all the surfaces and have enough time for it to dry and all things like that. There's a lot of logistics to it, whether people realize what these guys are doing behind the scenes or not. So, still a lot went on, but luckily we got to cut back on a few of the more invasive tests for COVID, things like that.
A lot of us had to choose to be brave, to say yes and to show up, and maybe even choose to be brave multiple times a day while the entire event was happening. So there's that aspect. Then there's all the logistics. Then there's all the emotion. And then there's trusting one another. So the responsibility that the leadership team had to lead us to a safe outcome was tremendous. This was a team that was committed to the responsibility that was necessary for all the magic to happen.
So I like to call this past pageant COVID mulligan. We got to try out a lot of fun, cool stuff. I've never been in theater. I enjoy going to the opera. I enjoy watching theater myself, but I've never been part of it. So I got to play with the inner theater nerd that didn't really exist. We had a big giant room, nothing in it. We had no lights, we had no sound, didn't have a stage. So it became an interesting, what can we do? What can we try out this year that might be a little more fun or unique? It's really expensive to build a stage and sound system and cameras and lighting and all that. So we started looking at ways, how can we reuse spaces, or how can we bring a little theatrics into it to make a reuse space interesting? And I got to thinking, well, hey, let's make a reconfigurable stage. Let's throw in some fog, some special lighting. Let's move in some movable panels. So we came up with about 10 large panels that we could light with different lights, we could project onto them, and then we laid out a new scene for every part of the competition. We have a great cooperation with Jonathan Kane, and we have all 8 queens. They design opening number dresses. We're the world famous designer for their fellow sister queens for the next year, so that's kind of cool. We said, hey, let's actually do a little theater, recreate that experience. And then we just had a fashion runway that replicated what we were doing with him every year. So there was a lot of interesting things that came out that a lot of people loved and we're going to be able to take forward.
The women and the girls that got to participate in this year's opening number, they got to wear Jonathan Kane fashions that would have come out of your fantasy closet. This was not something where it was a cookie cutter opening number outfit, because that actually wasn't possible.
So COVID-19 this year has absolutely had a huge effect on my business, and also with what we've done this year with the Miss United States pageant opening number dresses, because shipping times were so delayed this past year that we had to figure something else out, as so many people had to change their direction of how they were going to do things. And we just knew with our cutoff time for the girls, getting us their sizes and entering the pageant, and with us also producing them in that short amount of time, we had no room for error with shipping, and it was just not reliable. None of the major shipping carriers was able to guarantee their ship times.
No one were going to proms, the other pageants were down. So I said, look, why don't we do this? why don't we have a Jonathan Cain runway show as our opening number? And each woman would have their own unique outfit.
So we decided to change it up and do something different and do a runway fashion show where each of the girls got a unique look. And it may have been a cocktail dress, it may have been a jumpsuit or a gown, but no two contestants in the division were in the exact same garment, which was pretty cool. So it gave them their own uniqueness for the first time that the judges get to see them. And my whole idea was really working with the pageant, and we problem solved to figure out how we were going to do that. So we got to see a picture of each contestant, so I could also see their body shape and see what would look good on them with their hair color and skin tone and eye color and things like that. And the girls looked like $1,000,000.